My biggest fear is sharks. I hate sharks, except for these little baby sharks. I like these guys. But if I'm gonna make a movie poster for my biggest fears, I'm gonna need a lot more than just sharks, because a lot of movies are about sharks. And another one of my biggest fears is being stranded in the middle of the ocean, which kind of works with sharks. But another thing that is insanely scary to me is the world ending, so I'll try to add some meteors in the poster as well. So now that we have our plan, let's hop into Photoshop and start designing. The first thing I added was some water and a little island in the background. I also made it look like we can see under the water, and then added a rock and cut the bottom half off and put it under the water. I also added some shadows and highlights, but next I added a shark under the water that's kind of looking up, and then adjusted the colors. I added some more fish to fill the space, and one of those fish was an angler fish, which gives off light, so I need to add a little glow and then a bunch of highlights on the fish around it. And then I also just added a stingray for some reason, so I'll have to add the highlights on that as well. But next I added a hill in the background and then fixed the colors, as well as some birds and a shark fin. I added a few bubbles in the water and some particles, but after that I decided to add a boat and cut off the bottom half to make it look like it's sinking, and then blurred it a little bit like the hills in the background. I adjusted the colors and then cut the background out of this bottle and then added some notes on the inside. I put the bottle in the water and adjusted the colors a little bit, but then I put a piece of wood in the water as well, just to build some more to the story, because technically there is no story. But with little items like this and maybe a little teddy bear, it helps you come up with your own little story in your head, and I think that's pretty cool. But what isn't cool is the sky, because it's basically just the same color as the water, so I'll add a different background with some more color and then fade the bottom out a little bit. But since I changed the color of the sky, I also have to change the color of the other stuff, so I did that with the island and the hill, as well as the boat, the water, the rock, the teddy bear, and basically everything. So next I made the top of the sky a little darker and added some stars, but then I started working on the title. I feel like Fear would be a good title for this, since that's basically what this is about. So I got a font that I liked and adjusted the size, and also changed the position of the sinking boat. Another thing that should change is the color of that like and subscribe button. If you haven't pressed it already. Okay, I'm sorry. But I added a bevel and emboss to the text and put a bunch of rock and cement textures on top of it, and then added some cracks in different spots, and then erased some parts around it to make it look less clean. And I thought this was pretty cool, so I added a camera raw filter to make it look even better, and then started working on those meteors that we talked about earlier. And after making something that kind of looks like a rock, I put a bunch of them in the top left corner and made them super bright, because after that I added a bunch of fire on top of them. And I could have added something like this or this to save time, because I ended up spending 7 hours designing this whole poster, but I kind of just thought it would be fun to make it myself. Plus, these images are AI generated.
Bitch ass nigga. Hey man, nigga. Where your mom's at, my boy? Where your mom? Ah!
Anyways, I added some smoke coming off of the meteors and then some more light. But next I took some movie poster text and put it at the bottom to make it look more professional. But now let's actually give this rock some meaning by putting myself on top of it. So I asked my mom to take some pictures of me, and this one turned out the best. So I put it in Photoshop and then used the pen tool to cut out my body. And after doing that for about 45 minutes, which is a lot longer than I feel like it felt like, probably because I was watching Moist Critical while doing it, I added myself onto the rock and used a camera raw filter to adjust the look and coloring of the image. Next, I took all the hair on my head and made it a separate layer to use Blend If to keep all the craziness. After that, I had to correct the lighting, which is just adding a bunch of highlights and shadows, so I'll just speed this part up. I also thought it would be cool to add some cuts on my body and maybe some rips in my shirt like a Mr. Beast thumbnail. So I added some red lines on my head and adjusted the shapes, and also added a little blood to this one. Next, I used the pen tool to cut out some spots in my hoodie, and then searched shirtless man on Google and found exactly what I needed. Wait, no, I put the background onto the spot that I cut out, and then added a shoulder, cut out the background, adjusted the coloring, and then added some shadows. I also felt like adding some more cuts, so that's exactly what I did, but the cutout was a little too sharp, so I went around it and made it look more like cloth, and then basically just did the exact same thing to the other cutout, but with a different body part. I added some speckles on the outside of the fireballs and added a motion blur to make them look like sparks. Finally, I'll add a camera raw filter, which will definitely bring this to life and make it look more complete. So this is what the final poster looks like. In a future video, I'm going to try to combine a bunch of your suggestions into one movie poster, so comment some random things you want to see. And don't forget to like and subscribe while you're at it.